We need to build a new car. I'm Justin.
I'm Cousin Rob.
And this is Husman Bros. And before we go too much further, please subscribe for more great content like this down below. Now, the last time we spoke, we were talking about our 944.
Right.
We had big plans to Safari a 944, but we got into the differential of the car and changed the oil, which was way prettier than I thought it should be.
Boy, it came out not too bad.
It was so nice. However, what wasn't nice was the sound the 944 was making. We kind of determined it was probably the pinion bearing.
Yeah, it was probably the pinion bearing. It was bad.
And so it was major surgery for, frankly, a car that would have needed a bunch of investment anyway. Right? And so we decided to get rid of it. And right now, Grayson's going to cut in video of it going away. So I'm a little sad to see this go. This was my second Porsche. I have driven this quite a bit. I once coasted this down a mountain in Oklahoma with no clutch and left it there for 3 days when my buddy came and picked it up and towed it home for me. And
Teddy picked you up, right?
Teddy picked me up, yeah. And so this car, I have done a ton in this car. This is what got me into Porsches. It has been so much fun. I'm a little sad to see it go, but I'm excited about our next project. Now that you've seen the car go down the road, we have decided that we still need to build a Safari car.
Right.
Okay, and we've done a Cayenne. Frankly, we don't have enough money to do a 996 right now, right? I think that would be the next one we'll do, but we're gonna start with a Boxster, okay? And we're gonna challenge ourselves. We are gonna try to build this car into a Safari car for under $10,000. So we start with the car itself.
Yes.
Somewhere between 4 and 5 for a car of this quality.
Yeah, there's a few things that's going on with it. So it's not a what I would call category 1 or 2. It's probably a category 4. So yeah, I think about $5 grand.
I think mechanically it's sound. I know the owner just had it painted. So if you went to go buy this car, we'd say somewhere between 4 and 5. So that's our starting point.
Right.
So how are we going to spend our other $6,000-ish, Rob?
Yeah. So if we're going to build a Safari car, it all starts with the look.
Right.
So that means we need to start with a lift. We'll be looking to source a lift through one of our partners. But then you got to have the right look. The wheels and tires have got to look the part too.
Right.
So the best thing to do is we're going to use the existing wheels. We're going to finish them.
I think these are great off-road
they're
wheels.
fantastic wheels. Porsche wheels are really the best wheels.
Right.
As I've told you probably once or twice.
Right.
But then we'll look for some knobby tires that give it the look. So it'll have the right stance.
Okay.
But that's just the edge, right?
So we're guessing. What we've decided from a looks perspective is we're going to do red and white. Anything that we do to add to this car, whether it's custom or painted, white.
Yes.
Right, so we're going to do that. So if we're going to do wheels, we're going to use these wheels. We'll get them done in white. Do tires. We need a 5th wheel, and we'll talk about that in a second. What are we into wheels, do we think, so far? Wheels and tires, probably.
But by the time you get the wheels refinished, add the new tires. We're probably talking about $2 grand-ish, somewhere in that range.
Again, we're on a budget, so we're going to try to keep it tight.
Yeah, we're going to try to keep it tight.
$2 grand for wheels, that leaves us with another 4. So what is a Safari without some sort of bumper?
It just doesn't have the vibe, right?
No, it doesn't.
So there's a couple of different ways we can go. We can go light bar.
Right.
We can go kind of
light pod, you mean, right?
Well, or light pod, right? We've got multiple directions. There can be light pod, which looks really cool. We've seen a lot of off-road Porsches with that.
That's classic.
We can also
Safari
do
stuff.
a light bar with a group of driving lights along the bumper. That's an option. You could do both. You could have some. You could really light this thing up. We have the technology to do that.
Right. So when I did the bash bar on our Cayenne S that you saw us broke at Crossbar Ranch, what we did is we took out the tow hook hole and we mounted our custom bumper to that, but I only see one tow hook here. What are you thinking?
I don't know. What we're going to do, our first project, we're going to take the front and rear bumper covers
See what
off.
We're working with.
Yeah, the good news, it's a very easy project. It's about an hour on and off, so it's about 2 hours. Then we're going to look at the bumper structure. Are there any additional holes, fittings that are we talking about actually replacing the bumper completely?
Altogether.
Altogether.
To leave it cut off like the Turbo S.
That's correct, leaving it cut off like the Turbo S.
Interesting thought. If you have thoughts on that, leave them down below. Now here's the other thing I want you to leave. If you know somebody that already makes a bash bar for the first gen Boxster, please drop that in the comments down below, because if we don't have to start from scratch, it's going to save us time, it's going to save us money.
And money at the end of the day too.
Absolutely.
Right.
So up front, lights, bar, we'll see.
Yes.
Right? Maybe skid plate. Who knows?
Skid plate,
But
that's right.
now we're getting into some big budget stuff once
That's
we
correct.
get that much working, because we haven't gotten to the back yet.
Right.
So one of the things that I'd like to see, or like for us to consider, is some way to put some sort of bash guard along the lower side. Do you think there's a way to do that?
I would say definitely, maybe. I wish I could be more vague, but the good news is there's body panels, they're plastic body panels that are underneath. Once again, those are easy to remove.
Right.
And it gives us a chance just to expose what's under there.
Okay.
So we'll have a chance to really look at if there's any infrastructure built into it, so that we can make that determination if we can add some. I would say the answer is yes. It's just, well, how much do we need to invest, and how much do we need to develop the solution ourselves? The
answer is always yes if you have enough money.
If you have enough money.
Tell your friends, have them subscribe, we'll up our budget. Now let's go to the back and see what we can do here. So one of the things that I think a Safari has to have is some sort of big tire mounted on the outside.
Agreed.
Okay, now what I was thinking was, frankly, I wanted to put it up front. But Pat made a good point, the owner of this car made a really good point, that if we put it up front, that's a pretty big thing to try to see over on a fairly small car like this.
It is. You wouldn't have good sight lines,
so
right?
I was vetoed on that one. So we got to figure out a way to put some sort of spare here.
Right.
Here's our challenge. Plastic, can't mount it there.
Right.
Right now, I've not put the top down on this. Does this open? Is that how this works?
This shifts back to about here.
Got it. Okay, so not quite like the 996 where it just self-conclosed.
Right.
There are parts that come out. Okay, so can't mount it here. This is the engine compartment.
It's the trunk. So the engine is
that's
actually
right. The engine's right here. This is the frunk, so it's not as important that this needs to be open quickly.
It helps because you access the way to fill the oil and the way to fill the coolant.
So whatever we put here would have to be movable so that we could get into this.
Right.
So, I mean, I'm looking, man, I don't think we can just drill holes in this. I don't think that will support wheel and tire.
No, it will not. This is a fairly light, I mean, it's a very stout piece of steel.
Sure.
But it's not built to support that kind of weight.
So how could we put a wheel and tire on this?
I have an idea.
Okay.
So there's some bumper covers on the back. And what's interesting is that by the age of this car, you can feel they're nasty.
Right.
Just an aside note, most folks go and have those painted.
Right.
And it makes the back of the car pop. But there is some mounting hardware under this.
Okay.
And so we're going to remove these bumper covers and see what exists. My idea is a bar that comes up over the top like this. The tire would mount here. We will need to probably drill a support hole somewhat roughly here or here in the middle
the top
to
part
brace
of it, so it's not bouncing
right
around.
But it would be something where you would be able to open the trunk around it. It would have to be weatherproof. We'll have to put some sealing on it.
Sure.
But I do believe there's a way to do it.
Now if we do that, we need to turn this off.
That's easy. It's just pulling a fuse.
So, but we need to think about that, right?
That's correct.
So in the back here, even aside from this, do we think that with our budget we can get in an off-road bumper as well?
It's going to have to be custom fabricated.
Sure, I mean, I think that either bumper is going to have to be fabricated. Yes. If you know something different, dear viewer, please drop it down below. I know there are lift kits. I don't know that there's the rest of it.
Right. So we may be inventing it.
Again, and that gets expensive. I know that when we did the bash bar on this one, that cost somewhere in the range of $500, and that was pre-pandemic. So different prices, different lives, right? So with our narrow budget, we have to figure out how to do this.
We do, right.
Is there anything else that we want to consider to make this a safari car?
Sure, a couple things we could do. Obviously, if we're going to be driving in dust and off-road, there's some pretty big holes right here. So we'd probably want to have some type of mesh and maybe some aggressive foam so we don't restrict the airflow.
Oh, okay.
But that's something to think about.
So build our own filters to go in there.
Yeah, correct. Okay. I think that would be appropriate. And if Pat's going to take this down a gravel or dirt path, there's a lot of dirt this thing can kick up.
I can see that. What else are you thinking? Anything else that we should consider when we're building this?
You know, that's the basic for our budget.
Right.
That's about as much bang for the buck as we're gonna get out of it.
We're going to try to squeeze Pat for more, but we're going to try to stay under 10 if we can.
Right. Now, something else that we can think about is obviously the suspension geometry. How much will a lift kit mess that up, or can we work around it by a really good, alignment?
Sure.
One thing we need to think about are the existing shocks that are on there. Will they work? The challenge here is these are struts, right? So they're one piece. They're the strut as a suspension, a stressed suspension component as well as the shock.
Okay.
So we need to think about those things.
Okay. So this is a Gen 1 986, and again, I know he doesn't have a ton into this. Do you think we'll need to change shocks or anything on it?
We won't know until we get a little deeper.
Okay.
That's really, to me, looking at the suspension kit, the lift kit, what pieces have to be modified or stretched so that they work. We've heard stories where folks just say, "Oh, I just put the lift piece on it and called it good." That might work, but I'm also not willing to completely, bank on that.
So with the 944, we were saying that we really didn't need a full lift kit because we could adjust the suspension in the back to get
Correct.
some lift and then put some pucks in the front.
That's correct.
Is that the same with this car?
No, it's not, because you have the 944 has it has a torsion bar rear suspension.
Sure.
And we could re-index that. That doesn't exist here.
So this is more,
It's independent, right? It's basically struts all the way around.
Okay, all right.
Don't quote me on that. I need to look, and I can't remember if it's
Well,
struts
we'll get
in the
into
back.
it when we get this thing taken
Yeah.
apart. But I'm pretty sure you're right. I don't think that we can just adjust this. So I'm excited about this project. I think this will be a good time. I think that we'll make something kind of fun.
Oh, it'll be fun. Yeah.
I'm not going to buy this one, promise. I'm looking forward to this. If you folks have ideas, we want you to be part of this. If you know where to buy bumpers, if you have suggestions, we'd love to see them. Drop that in the comments down below. Stay tuned. We're going to make this something special. So hopefully this isn't the only Boxster content we'll be doing. Rob has a harebrained idea to trade a bunch of booze for a Boxster, and look out for that video. But if that works, there'll be plenty of maintenance videos and Boxster content to do as well. We want you to be part of this build just as much as you were part of the other one.
Right.
So stay tuned, subscribe, hit notification, be a part of this with us. Thanks for watching. We'll see you.